heartening. Actually, it was at that point of time, it was the only team representing India. Um, so it's really great to see that sparked people and teams in different universities to actually participate currently. Yeah, it's a privilege to be here. Thank you, Srimati and other ITM ambassadors for reaching out to me to speak about what we are doing today. And a lot of, I'm one of the co-founders of C6 Energy, and I'm also the chief scientific officer, mainly driving all the scientific advances in the company. So my own background is I have done my bachelor's and master's from IIT Madras in biotechnology. Graduated in 2010, and we started C6 Energy right after we graduated in July 2024. So just last week we turned about 14 years as an organization. Yeah. So I'll not take too much time. Um, I just put some slides together, uh, just some pictures and stuff from not very long ago. Spurred a lot of nostalgia when I was putting all of them together. So we were, I think, we were six of us in the IGEM team from the IIT Madras a team, and then that was way back in 2008. So we were working with Professor Guhan Jayaraman in IIT Madras. I think the folks from IIT Madras may know Dr. Guhan Jayaraman, and we were also collaborating with Dr. Mukund Tatai from NCBS. So
even people who are not part of IIT Madras will know him.
okay, yes, yes. I think the first IGEM team was under his leadership, Professor Mukund Tatai, and later on he also worked with us. So we put together our concepts in 2008 in IGEM, and we also won the silver prize that year for the best engineered biobrick award that in 2008. And I think some of us stayed on because we had to finish our, we were all in dual degree, we had an additional year. That's when in 2000, after the event, we also got together to work on some projects in which, one of the sponsors of IGEM for us, for the IIT Madras team way back was an alumni, Mr. Sri Kumar. He was also the ex-R&D head of Biocon. So he actually sponsored our project when we did 2008 IGEM. Um, and we all got together and we were debating and uh, and I trying to identify what are the big problems in the world that we can solve, because we have all the tools, we have the education and the tools and the infrastructure at IIT Madras to do to develop solutions. And that's when we said, okay, maybe there are already a lot of people looking at healthcare and agriculture. So we look at something in the energy segment, whether we can actually make fuels happen. So this was way back in 2009 when we actually worked on a project, and we also participated in Able Best, which was the biotechnology entrepreneurship student competition, in which we got exposed to the concept of entrepreneurship for the first time, because in 2008 to 10 there were hardly any startups which were actually coming out, and this was the first time anybody was actually seriously thinking of entrepreneurship. So the Able Best also gave us a platform and an opportunity to understand what entrepreneurship means, what are the various things you need to look in when you want to start a company. Do you have an idea? Do you have a market? And I mean, there were a lot of, do you have enough contact? I mean, do you have fundraising? So they've all put everything in a perspective on how having an idea is the beginning, but how to convert the idea into something useful, whether it is a product or a technology that can actually solve unmet needs in the market. I think that is where we got inspiration to even think about starting a company. So I think for most of you, for iGEM, it's more like a scientific concept. You need to put together. Sorry, looks like I'm not using. So for iGEM, you need to put in together a scientific concept to solve a problem, right? So it's at a lab scale, it's at a very small laboratory scale that you can actually prove an idea. So that is something we call as technical proof of concept. So you develop that, you generate it, and you actually validate it. So it's in a very micro environment that you do, and you plan to actually translate that into a real environment product sometime later. So while this is a great beginning in iGEM, so there are a lot of other points that you also have to think about when you actually want to translate that into a real product into the market. So with iGEM, what it enabled for us was a great team to start with. I think when you form a team, when you actually work with them, you realize each other's strength, each other's capabilities, and you can build on each other and collaborate between teams to actually build something innovative and new. So that was the foundation on which I would say we built C6 Energy, because when we started, we were 4 people in the company. Now we are 300 plus people in the company as an organization in more than 7 countries. So I think the foundation on any day has to be really strong for you to build the future. So iGEM laid that for us. A lot of us built on that trust and that camaraderie that we built in the iGEM process to actually take things forward in directions that we didn't actually anticipate that we will go. I called it accidental entrepreneurship because I think none of us planned to become entrepreneurs when we were graduating. It all happened in the last 2-3 months before we received our convocation certificates, that we said, okay, let's think about this idea. What do we do? Some of us had admits, some of us had jobs, but we said, okay, let's see if this seems exciting. Let's try it on our own and see what happens. So, and in the initial 3 years, we were in IIT Madras. I mean, that I think some people from IIT Madras may recognize that picture. This was the Department of Biotechnology building in IIT Madras where we actually started the company. We were there for 3 years in IIT Madras, and then we moved to C Camp, which is inside the National Center for Biological Sciences now. We've been there for the last 12 years now in C Camp. So I just wanted to give you a concept on why we started the company. So in 2010, when we were looking at ideas that impact the world globally, we really felt crude oil is one problem. I mean, we are using the carbon dioxide that is in the earth, which is buried in the earth millions of years ago, and we are actually pulling it out, and it is also causing a lot of other, I mean, it is solving a lot of important problems. We are able to fly planes, we are able to sit in a room with AC, with lights, fans, we are able to wear some of these clothes, you know. Crude oil definitely impacts us in more than ways we can even imagine. We are able to make agricultural inputs from crude oil. So what we are today essentially is built on the economies around crude oil. And when we felt, you know, while there are a lot of other alternatives which companies are working on, you know, renewable energy, wind, solar, and all the other possibilities, the world is coming together to actually see how we can move away from crude oil. We felt there are some avenues which may not be possible to replace with renewable electricity. For example, when you fly planes, you need very high energy density fuels. When you want to wear clothes, you need certain chemicals. You want to use this remote which has the plastic cover, you know, that is chemical, that is hard stuff, right? So you may not be able to replace all of that with electricity. And so we identified that small subsegment which we felt we could actually make it completely renewable from biomass based sources. But the problem was, even in way back into, I mean, some of these calculations are as of today, but way back even in 2010 when we did the calculations, we felt that some of these numbers don't add up, because you need as much as the entire world's agricultural production to actually be able to divert all of that to make some of these chemicals and fuels happen. So we said that's a non-starter for a country like India, where we have limited freshwater and land resources. So we felt, can we actually design a solution that is not dependent on freshwater and land? And that's where we felt, you know, we are so land focused as an economy, as a country in India, but there are a lot of economies outside India which are actually very proactive in ocean-based economies. So we looked around the world and we said, you know, there's 3/4 of our Earth's surface is ocean. Can we actually do something on the ocean? Can we actually do agriculture on the ocean to create the next generation of biomass, which can actually be carbon negative feedstock for the world. And that's how we actually design. I mean, that's how we built the vision of the company. That is to generate disruptive solutions for a sustainable planet. And we said we will do all of the ocean agriculture upstream. We will make the biomass, and we will actually convert that into products which can contribute to sustainable economies around the world. And so then we asked the question: are there plants which actually grow on the sea? So turned out that there are some plants which are very old. I mean, which are been growing in the sea for a very, very long time. These are seaweeds. So the beauty is that they don't need fresh water or land or even like inputs, fertilizer inputs. So we are actually able to grow them with the carbon dioxide which is available in the water, in the air, nutrients which are available in the seawater. You don't need land. So that was like really interesting for us when we started in 2010 because it does not depend on fresh water and land. So we said, but if it was that exciting, why are people already not looking at it? So then we realized that there are a lot of problems associated with seaweed cultivation. We looked around the technologies around the world, and it is done very manually. That's when we felt we could actually bring in some engineering interventions to actually to improve the way it is cultivated. And even for us, when we look at so we have an upstream technology team which actually works on automation, mechanical engineering, ocean engineering, which actually designs platforms that can enable ocean cultivation at a very, very large scale. And we also work with the community very closely in Indonesia, and we develop a lot of crop science based information just as a snapshot, which actually contributes to large scale seaweed farming. And as a milestone for the company, we've actually laid out one of the world's first largest mechanized seaweed farming in Indonesia. We also have a subsidiary company in Indonesia. So all of this actually leads to how do we actually make this into a profitable venture which actually has a business potential, right? So we looked at the various market options, business options which are possible, and the products that we can actually make from seaweed can actually impact multiple segments, right from agriculture to even bioplastics. Like let's say you want a replacement for your bag, carry bag, you want it to be waterproof, you want it to be, but you want it to be biodegradable after you use it, right? So that is, those are the kind of problem statements that are emerging because we want to live in a sustainable manner, and we want to change our practices on a daily basis. So we looked at all the possible opportunities, and we said, seaweed, we can actually develop downstream applications from seaweed, which can enable market opportunities in most of these domains in agriculture. And so as a company, we actually work on developing applications in plant health to improve agricultural productivity. We identify very unique active ingredients from seaweed. This is a tropical red seaweed. We identify that and we improve it, we use it to improve plant health and plant immunity. Very, very novel products. And we also develop products for food. Let's say you want to replace you want to use less sodium in your product, in your food. You want to replace sodium in your food. You want to have more fiber rich food. So we are actually exploring some of these options for making sure that we can eat food in a more sustainable manner. And if we want to make chemicals and fuels actually happen from seaweed, so for that we need to be able to actually grow these seaweeds at a large scale and at a cost. So actually I forgot to mention that. So the cost curve that we actually put here is a representation of how we can actually enable different businesses as the cost of seaweed can actually go down. So there is an intricate link between how the product opportunities can actually materialize into business versus how it is today based on the current practices of seaweed. So in that respect, we have some products which we have already commercialized in plant health that has been in the business for the last 6 years. And we have some products which are in the pipeline, in the R&D pipeline, which are spanning different segments like I talked about. So just want to give a glimpse of where we are. We are already, like I said, 300 plus people. We developed a lot of IP around processing seaweeds and how we can actually grow seaweeds at large scale, how we can convert them. So so we are actually driving innovation on how we can develop the next generation of economy based on ocean agriculture. And so I just want to share some key learnings which may also be applicable in IGEM or when any of you want to start a company in future. So I think what we have learned in the last 14 years is, the ability to learn fast and innovate will keep you ahead of the curve from anybody else in the world. So you always have to stay ahead of the competition. And the only way is that you have to pick up new areas, new knowledge domains, and actually generate knowledge. And you have to collaborate. Collaboration is within your teams, with others, because whenever you build solutions, you can't build it all alone, all by yourself. So collaboration is really key. Uh, so many aspects that we drive, so many innovations that we design in the company actually come from collaboration with outside world. And we also need to have a lot of perseverance, especially in the biotechnology segment, because it's a long-term product evolution pathway. Whether you take any new products in healthcare, any new products in agriculture, it will take you at least 5 to 7 years from the time you develop product to actually hit the market. So it's a long-term game. So you have to have perseverance, and you need to be able to continuously innovate in the process and keep the teams in place. And lastly, funding and being able to survive, being able to generate revenue from the ideas that you actually think are feasible at the bench scale or in the lab, converting them into possible business opportunities is also very, very key. So I put together a Venn diagram. So when you have ideas, what we do is we look at market fit, whether it actually is solving a real problem in the market. Then you look at whether you can make the product at scale, whether you can actually sell the product in the market, whether you have the ability to make it, whether you have the technology and the means to protect it, whether you have intellectual property or whether somebody else has intellectual property on the same idea that you have. So that becomes really key when you actually translate your idea into business. And lastly, regulatory can sometimes break or make your product. But this is not just applicable to any products or technology that you develop uh, with respect to ideas that are already in the market. But if you create a completely new idea, a completely new market also, you'll have to keep some of these in mind. So yeah, so I think in terms of uh, I think Srimati also asked me on my views on emerging biotech ecosystem in India. And see, there's a lot of opportunities to make a difference. I mean, everything from the time we start, biotech touches us in the multiple ways. And the skill sets that every one of you have is very similar. Like you understand, you have the tools, but I think the most important thing is what is the problem statement that you're solving. I think channeling all of your skills, all of your knowledge, abilities into solving some problems which are really important, which you can find inspiring at in your own heart. You should feel very connected. You should get inspired by it, and it should also impact the planet around you. So that's where you can actually, all of you and each one of you can actually make a difference. Yeah. Thank you. Deliberately kept it very short so that if people have questions, we can talk.
Firstly, thank you. It was a very informative talk. I wanted to ask you that the conversion of biomass to sustainable, the products you are making, how do you make that process sustainable? Like in that
Yes.
process also you will have to use some kind of fuel or some chemicals or some processes. So how you make that sustainable?
Yeah, so first is to be aware of what your LCA is. Let's say for every process that we do inside our company, we actually do a carbon intensity analysis. So the idea is that every every generation of product that you make, you have to make the carbon intensity lower. So that's a very that's something that we keep in focus within the organization. So obviously, to make products, you need to be able to use electricity or some chemicals or inputs. So we look at sustainable inputs like chemicals which don't have a toxicity, which are clean, which are biodegradable. So the focus entirely is on using inputs which are organic, which are sustainable, and also trying to look at energy sources which are sustainable. Like if you can shift to renewable instead of using coal-derived electricity, we would do that.
Okay, thank you. Uh,
Hi, ma'am. It was a great talk. I have a question. So, in iGEM, we mostly just come up to the proof of concept part of the project. So, after the proof of concept, when you have to build a startup, you have to make sure that your proof of concept also aligns with your scalability goal. Like,
Yes.
it should be, the product should be able to, your strain should be able to scale up. So what do you think like you guys did when you had your proof of concept and then you had to scale it up to say a factory design or an industrial design? So what were the steps did you follow in your trial and error and validation process?
Yeah. So typically when you design a product, you incorporate process conditions in the design of the product itself at the lab bench scale. So you look at each and every step very critically and see whether that is scalable, whether I can make this, whether you make it at microliter scale in the lab, whether I can make it at millions of liter scale. So you plan for your process and your way of manufacturing around the 1 million liter scale, bring it back to the lab scale and see how you can design your process in a more efficient manner.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
So, I'm mostly interested in your journey from IGM to a company.
Yeah.
Because this is what we were talking in the tea break. Like now, I'm involved with IGM from 2016. As you said, like you were the only team, right? So when I started in 2016, I think there were 5 teams. That was a stretch anyway. So it was between like 3 to 5 teams always that were. So then suddenly from 2018 and 19, we started seeing this huge jump in the number of teams. There was a time when we were 15. So essentially the problem that we are facing, that we wanted to have some kind of solution where the students spend a lot of time on a project and after the competition cycle is done, it's shelved.
Right.
Right? So like we are trying to figure out, I've been working on this for a long time now, for like almost 3-4 years. I've been talking to DCIL, BIRAC and other people. So one issue that comes up which I wanted to know how IIT Madras, like how it works there. Let's say that you started the company, who owns what is the percentage? Is there any written guidelines what IIT has? Like
No, I don't think IT had that. So we had to figure it out between us,
okay.
whoever the co-founders were.
Okay.
So even in our case, in the iGEM project, the project that we had done was essentially shelved after. Okay. So, and a lot of research associates and scientists who joined in the lab after that, they actually picked it up and then they tried to make it into a concept, into a product. But at that point of time in iGEM, I think the focus was not on actually commercializing it or anything.
Right.
It was more like designing a diagnostic tool or a biobrick which can actually achieve a purpose which is novel and which is not done before. So the focus was more on how can you be more innovative. When you bring a layer of product or a scale up, then I think the number of ideas that you can work at that scale kind of come down.
Right.
Yeah. So
Now I think one of the issues that they have when they want to take it out of IGM and then take, like, start, let's say that one of them graduates and thinks that I want to work on the project. Like, who owns it? Becomes a question because essentially the institute funds it.
right.
So those kind of things, if you have any suggestions,
Ownership. Okay.
that's something, I mean, I'm from the academic background, so I'm still
Yeah, so
trying to get in. So this is something
right.
that maybe you can help us with. Like
Yeah, so typically ownership is a complex thing when it comes to universities. So if the team really feels that they have created a very unique idea which is not there in the world anywhere. The first thing is to look at how you can protect that idea. Okay, so you need to actually work with patent attorneys to see how you can file IP around that idea. So at least you know that university owns the IP. When you create a company, you can have mechanisms around licensing that IP from the university in a manner saying that, okay, if I generate revenue from this IP, I will give you back some royalty because you funded my initial idea, my initial work. But you also have to understand that I'm going to do a lot more developmental work after the initial idea. Like you have funded me, let's say 5 or 10 lakhs for generating the POC, and you may take an ownership of the IP, but in the future when I want to create a company, whoever is in the company can actually have a mechanism to license that IP with some payback to the university. So that will actually, at least enable an ecosystem where you're not putting smart people together to create ideas and they're all shelved after,
Right. So
after.
this is what we were thinking. So maybe these guys can connect with you
Yeah,
if they need something,
yeah,
because
yeah,
I cannot help them with that.
sure.
Listening to you, I thought this could be a
Yeah, yeah, sure. I think those kind of mechanisms can be put in place to safeguard even the effort that was put in by students
Exactly.
and the effort that goes in within organizations as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Ma'am, uh, ma'am, the seaweed that your company is farming, is that genetically modified or
No, it's natural. Natural.
so you have just automated that seaweed farming process?
Yeah, so we are also working on new breeds of seaweed, but more through traditional methods, not through genetic modification. So that is also in the research phase right now. We work with some of the leading scientists to look at how we can generate diversity, because this actually grows by uh, vegetative propagation. So I mean, after a point of time, you may also lose the traits that you have to begin with. So we are also working with other scientists in the world who are well renowned to generate diversity of these species, so that we can have them built for the future. Because when you are building the key is the foundation again is the raw material, right? So you need to have access to traceable quantities of raw material. The species has to maintain its integrity. So all of that comes back again into research phase. Yeah. No, we are not looking at GMOs because
Hello. Can you elaborate a little bit about the engineering aspect of your solution, like how it started in the initial phase, when you participated in the IGM, and how that evolved into a product that you can sell in the market?
So in IGEM, like I said, our focus in 2008, because we were also all students like you, we were not having that focus to create a product for the market. But I think it is now evolving the way IGEM teams are coming up with ideas. You may have an opportunity to create a product for the market, whether it is a diagnostic tool or some way to enhance production of some pigments, or all of that can be actually looked at from a product point of view. So did that answer your question? Yeah.
I had a question regarding how the laws around having a farm on the ocean work. Because, for example, in crude oil, depending on where the oil well is, a certain part of your profits and all go to the country which owns those waters. So, how does that work with respect to farming in the ocean?
So good question. There are not many countries which have legislations around farming the oceans.
Yeah.
So because this is completely new concept. So Indonesia is quite progressive in that front. They actually farm the ocean surface. So they actually lease the ocean surface to people,
Okay.
private limited companies, or whoever wants to cultivate on the ocean, because they have the precedent set from mussel farming and other things. So right now we are able to lease, let's say, a certain patch of sea for unlimited years by paying a certain fee upfront. So that land or that sea area with that coordinates actually belong to C6 Energy. So we can invest the amount of capex and all the required features onto the sea surface to do farming.
Right.
But it is still evolving in India. India doesn't have a policy around this. And other countries which are also seafaring are evolving these policies. So we also have to lobby with the governments to actually create some of these policies, so that it can enable each of those countries to actually develop marine agriculture in the ocean.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, thank you for the talk. It was very interesting. Um, I just wanted to get an idea of how many years of effort you had to put in into the research aspect before you could actually hit the ground and start making profits, or
Sorry, how many
start.
years have we put in research
Yes,
before
before you could hit the ground and start making it profitable.
profitable? So
Yeah.
as a company, we are still not profitable because we invest a lot of money in research and development. But next year, we aim to be profitable as a company. Typically, in the biotech segment, I think the initial years will be very heavy on research and development. So you will expect to incur losses. I would say at least 5 to 7 years before you can become profitable. That is the fastest you can actually, if you are in pharma, healthcare segment, if you're trying to develop or design some new drugs or something, it will even take you longer, 15 years plus. This is something I've heard even in my BTech when somebody from the industry came as an industrial lecturer. I was like, what, 15 years to develop a product? But I live and breathe, so the company, so I understand it completely.
Thank you so much.
But I would say that that should not deter anybody from exploring entrepreneurship in the biotech space, because right now the ecosystem is more enabled to handle entrepreneurship in India than when we started in 2010. You actually have access to people who you can talk to so that you don't make the same mistakes. You can actually start putting in a lot of thought and ideas upfront on the paper, evaluate if that is feasible or not before actually investing money on the bench and investing people's time to work on ideas. And you can see if somebody else has a patent on the same idea that you have and then just knock that idea off. So at a very early stage, you have the ability and the tools available now to take a more considered decision. So if you have an opportunity to make a difference, I would really ask every one of you to give it a try. Yeah.
Hello, ma'am. I had a question. So earlier on, you mentioned that C6 Energy also has a lot of patents that you have actively tried to file. So my question is more on the IP aspect. How exactly is a process patent easier to procure than a product patent? And how do these regulations change in the multiple countries you've set up C6 Energy in?
So on the IP, I can definitely say that on any day, product patent is strong compared to any process patent, because anybody can make a small slight change in your process and get away with making the same product. So if you're looking at patent landscaping, you should try and get a product patent as much as possible. That should be the first preference. If there is some innovative know-how that is in the process, that can only enable the product, and there is no other way to produce the product as far as you know, then process patent is also okay. So sometimes companies also file patents because they don't want other competing companies to block you from working on that idea. So you could also put something in the public domain and just make it public, not pursue that, so that you have freedom to operate. So that is why understanding how the laws around patenting work, because even with your patent, you have 20 years life to actually convert that patent to have monopoly on the product idea or the process that you're patenting. So within that time, you need to be able to enter the market and actually set into motion your commercialization. So by the time you actually invest into marketing, you build your plant, you invest in marketing, you actually get customers, sales, all of that will take at least 5 to 7 years, right? So you have an active life maybe of 10 to 12 years to actually safeguard your technology in terms of business. So you should try and actively pursue patents in product space as much as possible. And if it is not possible and you don't want people to block you, then you would apply for a process patent. Yeah.
And my second question, ma'am, how does this vary in different countries? Because IP, as we see it, can take on many different shades. Some countries have stronger product registration guidelines,
Yeah.
and some have weaker product registration guidelines. So how do these vary?
Yeah, so it is different in different countries. So typically when companies take decisions to file in multiple countries, also it depends on where you want to sell the product. You don't want to file in 168 or 190 plus countries that are there in the world, right? It is very expensive to file patents in countries outside India. So you would actually try to shortlist what is the country of choice that you want to protect your idea, because patents are very jurisdiction specific. So you can get some product claim in one country that you may not be able to get in another country because of the local laws. So you have to be able to fine tune your patent application and claims in line with the local patent laws. Okay, so the only way you can gain experience is to work with patent attorneys. I mean, we also learned it all the way ground up. When we filed 13 patents, usually we file it in 15 plus geographies across the world, which we identify as the key geographies. Then we work with patent attorneys, work in each geography independently, work with their associates. So there's a lot of learning which comes on the ground when you actually start working with attorneys. So they'll be able to guide you. Like a good patent attorney will be able to guide you when you send the patent specification, whether that is good, bad, what you need to actually put to actually make it very watertight so that nobody else can raise an objection. So typically it will take at least, unless you accelerate it, it will take you 4 to 5 years to get a patent grant itself. So you have to, so for a product to be in the market, you should have the product today if you want to commercialize it at least 2 years down the line. You should have all the things in place. So you have to plan really ahead of time.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions? We can take a couple more questions for the next 5 minutes and then we will wrap up the event.
Okay, ma'am. So I think I know that you've tried to tap into 3 other markets. And in terms of funding commercialization and scale up, what have you faced any major challenges in India particularly?
So the only segment we commercialized in India was agriculture. We are just entering into commercializing our food business. So in agriculture, we definitely faced some challenges in the initial years because there was no framework for such products to be registered in India. So there was a lot of challenge in the initial years where we had a lot of pushback from the regulatory authorities that why are you selling this product? So now there is a law which is in force from 2021 which actually enables such products to be sold in the marketplace. So that actually put a lot of, I mean, it is not yet fully in place, functional, but at least there is a mechanism for companies to sell such biological products in the market for agriculture especially. And the other challenge you have is the cash recovery when you sell the product. So that is also dependent on the kind of customer you choose. So there will be a lot of learnings when what kind of customer do you choose? Do you want your money back in 30 days or you are waiting to get your money back in 180 days from the time you sell? So those are definitely some challenges, but you can navigate them with the right kind of people. So actually having the right team, with a lot of knowledge, with a lot of mentorship, actually helps tackle all these challenges. Yeah.
Ma'am, as you mentioned that you're trying to enter the food segment now. So, do you think there are any safety problems which are associated to this? As you said that you got some pushback. So, were there any
Sorry.
safety related issues of the consumer? And if there were, then how did your team tackle with them?
No, there are no safety concerns with the products that we are developing in the food segment. So that is a minimum guaranteed, what do you say, the effort that we take to ensure whatever products you develop are not toxic, are not unsafe to the customer that you're giving. I think that is a bare minimum that you keep in mind when we develop products. So you do something called as toxicity panel tests that actually take a product, expose it to different organisms like maybe in some cases rats, in some cases other organisms, just to ensure that they're not toxic at the levels that you are administering them. So a lot of that background work actually happens before you launch products in the market.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Assuming there are no other questions, I would like to thank Ms. Sailaja for taking out time and being here and answering so many of your questions. It was a great session. Thank you so much for your questions again. That made it really interactive. We hope you enjoyed being here and answering the questions. And we are really glad to have you back after about 16 years maybe. Thank you so much for being here, ma'am.
And ma'am, we'd also like to present you with a small token of appreciation for coming here. Anushka.
There was no slide talking about the like how your project is a synthetic biology project. You reflect back on that, and some of you had very good points that you spoke, but you didn't directly connect with the impact that they are having. Right? So whenever you have a 10-minute or 12-minute presentation, you don't want to presume that the audience that you are addressing will know anything about your project, because it is your project. Everybody else will be like just passive learners, let's say. Right? So you know the most, and don't presume anything. Whenever you start with a very basic aspect of your project and move on. And the best way to grab people's attention is when you talk about the impact it is making, show in terms of numbers, and directly connect it with your product. Right? How many people, like the impact, the one way of addressing is, so I can actually talk based on your specific projects as well, maybe, but I don't think I have that much of time. So I remember in TVM's project you mentioned about it being, what is it, not endangered, but you word, but you didn't mention anything after that. It was just a sentence, right? So that is another impact that people would be interested in. And there was another project where you were talking about climate change. Which project was it, right? You had a lot, see, as I told you, you had a lot of things in your, all your projects had those things, but they're not connected, they're not presented as a story. Okay, so you didn't mention how your project is addressing exactly what, like, you know, measurable impact is what you want to look at. It's not like, okay, my project is impacting is one thing, but how and how many people it is impacting, or like, you know, at what scale we are talking about. So it can be a small niche, but it can be in the global scenario. The number might be less, But if it is in the geographically, if you're talking about if it is impacting people from various backgrounds, then it's still a big impact, right? So those kind of things, your presentations have to be made probably to align towards your deliverables. If you're looking at the medal criteria, you should have all the keywords addressed in your presentation, and nobody should have figured out, like, so many of your projects were well thought of, but then when we are asking questions, we are getting answers. Like, you should not give a scope for people to question you. That's the idea of presentation, right? When you're talking, you have to talk in such a way that what the judges are looking at, you are all shared with the rubrics for the, right? So then you saw that there is something called as SDG. Some of you just mentioned, but then how is something you didn't address? Why? How do you think your project is able to achieve that goal is not what you didn't. So those kind of small things, I think, a lot of your projects would have been better if you sat with the rubrics and then thought about every slide of yours. I want you to do a self-evaluation. Just get back, look at that questionnaire that was sent to you, and then see each of your slide and decide how better you would have done it. How would you have done it, right? I think that's it. You really have to work hard on your HP and IHP. IHP is missing in a lot of projects where you are talking about, once you understand how things are being done and like how you are integrating it back into your project. That's missing. Even if you are saying that, and science communication 101, okay? Few people, much more, much less. No. So don't get into that. Or just don't say anything. You just say that we contacted, let's say you can say scientists in the field of this or farmers in this region. Don't give these arbitrary words, don't use them. They don't look very nice in your presentations. Okay? So try and figure out these things. And of course, we are available for you. Whenever you need any suggestion, you can always mail. I'm in the group, so you can figure out, right? And now I have a personal agenda. Is that okay? So the personal agenda is, if any one of you is interested, I have a company which is into edutech, essentially, a startup, biotech startup. So we are coming up with new courses for, not essentially for the guys, it's more for, let's say, at a local scale, grassroots level, right? So if you can send me a 2-minute video or summary of your presentation or your project, as if you're talking to lay people, because Science for All is the idea of my company. So if you can come up with that, please, you're free to send it to me. I'll post it on my feed and also probably with India IGM. And work on your digital presence. I see only one, REC, you are the one who are posting, I don't know, one team from Chennai, I have to see. They're very actively posting on social media, but I don't see any other team. And all your surveys, why don't you try and put up on LinkedIn and Twitter, and it's possible to do that, right? And it's a lot of data that you can generate, and you can think, as I was telling you, implementation, research, policy decisions, policy briefs can be published from the data that you generate. If you need any guidance, please talk to me. I can direct you to people. There are some ethical concerns. I think some of your institutes have social science departments as well. You can talk to them how to make that survey so that it is ethically okay. And if you're into healthcare, there is BMC, Central Implementation Research. So there are some small scale journals that are really looking into this kind of data that needs to be published so that they can make policy decisions. So please consider that, especially people from really good institutes, well-resourced institutes like IISc and IITs definitely have that scope, because you will have the system available which can look into your background data set that becomes, it makes it ethically valid. You cannot take personal data, so you cannot ask them their numbers and names. You can say that respondent 1, respondent 2. So there are ways to, like, tackle these things. So please do that. Because a lot of work you are putting in, IGM is a place where your effort will be awarded and rewarded, not the result. So there is no need to dishearten. Put as much as effort you can, try to figure out how you can, do your best. And you will be rewarded for your effort. As much effort you put, you'll get your reward. So just focus on that. Don't worry about whether you are able to build that thing, whether it is going to work or not, whether you are able to scale up or not. That is a later question, right? This year we'll try and figure out, we are working with ambassadors very closely to figure out how to make things a little bit more easier for you if you want to transition from here to somewhere else. I hope we will succeed. Let's hope so. Every year, a new aspiration, so we'll see. Okay, good luck to everyone. I'll be around tomorrow morning. So if you have anything to talk, we can discuss. Okay?
Thank. Ma'am, can you please just. Thank you so much, Dr. Lavanya, for your kind words. We would like to present you with a small token of our appreciation for helping us out with the event, with judging the event. Thank you so much. Ma'am, can we take a picture as well, please?
this time I started. Yeah. Like last year when I was offering the courses, I would just
Uh, Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Fireside Chat event. So today we have with us Professor Sanhita Sinhare. Her lab focuses on improving personalized healthcare through molecular imaging methods like MRI, PET, photoacoustic imaging for non-invasive diagnosis of diseases at an early stage. She also works on developing molecular imaging biomarkers that can be used to quantify changes in tumor microenvironments such as pH, hypoxia, enzyme activity, and tumor-specific cell surface receptors.
We also have with us today Professor Atreyi Ghosh. So Atreyi Ghosh is a solid earth geophysicist who is interested in the dynamics of the mantle and the lithosphere. She works on how deep mantle flows interact with the lithosphere and how they cause surface deformations. Her group uses numerical models in order to quantify these interactions and also answer some outstanding questions about solid earth. The range of problems that her group focuses on include, but are not limited to, it's a long list. So dynamics of complex deformation, geoid anomalies, stability of cratons, interplate earthquakes, role of LLSVPs in convective circulation of the mantle, and so on. So we're really glad to have the both of you all here today. Thank you so much. So we've come up with a list of questions that we as a team wanted to ask you. So we're hoping to ask those questions first. And if you all don't mind, we'd like to afterwards open for questions from the audience.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'd like to take the honor of asking the first question. So for the both of you all, what inspired you to pursue a career in each of your fields? And do you have any role models or any ideas that helped you choose a career path?
I'll let you go first.
One of the reasons a lot of us do what we do is because we really find a sense of wonder in doing science. And I think that is important, and I was fortunate to kind of be instilled with this sense of wonder very early on when I was a kid. So I wanted to be a scientist from very early on. Also the reason I came to this particular field is there was a very well-known female geologist called Sudipta Sengupta. She was a structural geologist in a university in West Bengal, Jadavpur University, and she was one of the first Indian women to have traveled to Antarctica. And she came back and she wrote this book called Antarctica. And I read it when I was in high school, and I was absolutely fascinated by it. And at that time, I kind of knew that this is what I wanted to do. So this is kind of, like a short story about how I came to do the science that I do.
Professor Sanhita.
Hi. No, thank you. It's a great introduction and a lovely story, Atri. For me, it was actually, I'd say I was never sure till a very long time what I wanted to do. At least for chemistry, I wasn't sure. So I've kind of shifted, I think. I've done my undergraduate, my master's in chemistry departments from Jadavpur, then in Madras, IIT Madras. And I joined the chemistry and biochemistry department when I went for my PhD, and I loved organic chemistry till then. I wanted to do medicinal chemistry, I wanted to do organic chemistry, but as fate would have it, I kind of joined a lab with a professor who was a biomedical MRI physicist. And I think I got fascinated more and more when I was able to kind of see that you're making molecules as an organic chemist, but really the application side of it, that really interested me more, and I think I shifted gears after that a lot. I wanted to study disease biology and really look at translational imaging, do translational research. When I was doing translational research after that, even for my postdoc, I think I didn't do much chemistry during my postdoc. It was all actually imaging monkeys, imaging in humans, and to be able to see the impact of what you're actually doing in the lab bench being translated into the healthcare scenario, I think that really motivated me to stay in research, to be a researcher. To be very honest with all of you, I didn't have a very strong inclination to go into academia. I considered industry, I thought of industry, and the only thing that motivated me to stay in academia or apply to academic positions was the independence that comes with it, to be very honest. I wanted to direct the questions that I would get going forward, and I think that's what really motivated me to then come to academia in a place, in an environment that is very inspirational. I do find that here in ISC, to be honest. And speaking for role models, for me it changes. When I was in school, my history teacher was my role model. When I was in college, it was my chemistry teacher who was my role model. I don't have a specific role model, to be very honest. I just find qualities or something that inspires me in people, and I set them as a role model, or maybe that quality as a role model, and then it really changes. So I really don't have anything particular role model to kind of go on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, really nice stories and responses. Thank you so much, ma'am. The second question I'd like to ask is, in general, it is observed that women prefer life sciences like biology and chemistry over physics and math-intensive fields. What are your opinions on that? Why do you think that is the case?
Me?
Yeah, both of you actually.
I couldn't speak for everyone. I've noticed that I have noticed that among maybe my classes and groups to begin with. I don't know, maybe the unknown interests us more. I don't know, and I feel like in chemistry and biology, there's more chance. To me, I feel there's more chances of discovering something without knowing what you're going to discover. Why would I not choose maths? I don't have an answer to that, but or why it's not so frequent, I don't know. Yeah, there are mathematicians that are women, though, I know of. But yeah, go ahead, Atri. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I for a change did not choose biology, so I wasn't really very fond of biology. So I I did everything so that I didn't have to study biology in my 11th and 12th. So yeah, I don't think I have a clear answer, to your question, why, because, even I'm wondering why.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Usually, like, even in our classes, well, we were preparing for JEE and NEET exams.
Yeah.
So in the JEE part of the course, the guys would be 90% of the class, while in NEET it would be mostly like 50-50. So it was always like, at least with me, and in IISc, in undergrads, like women are more likely to take a bio major as compared to like the same ratio in boys is a bit skewed. So yeah.
Could be because, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if you guys have other, you think of other things on that. If you guys have thoughts, maybe we can hear. It could be also because you see more people in that field maybe that you think, yeah, you know, this woman so-and-so is a biologist or a chemist, or I wouldn't do the 10 people there versus one person there. So it might seem daunting to others. It never occurred to me like that ever. But now that you say that, I do see that ratio. I just don't know. Yeah, not sure. But maybe we can open the audience to answer as well.
Sure, does someone in the audience want to have an answer maybe?
Because you guys are doing it now, so you know why your class is full of, you know, one gender in one stream and not the other. Nope.
All right, Mana.
Okay, so if you wouldn't mind, how has your cultural background influenced your approach to science and research, if it has in any way?
Yeah, go first.
I think culturally from where I came from, there is a lot of emphasis on academics, on doing, you know, so science doing science is kind of held at a very, you know, high esteem. So I guess probably that has, you know, influenced a little bit. Like, for example, my parents, especially my dad, was, you know, had inspired me a lot to do science. I guess that has played kind of a pretty significant role in doing what I do.
I kind of agree with that, actually. I mean, we come from the same place, right? We both are from West Bengal, so I guess if you're really looking for cultural cues, it's not just family. I think like from even like the college scenario and schools, like people are very academically driven for some reason. They like reading a lot, and you know, they're curious, and I feel the research instinct is there in the cultural space in Bengal. Maybe that's why. But yeah.
If I may follow up with another question, how has your career in science shaped your personal values and your worldviews, in a sense?
Worldviews, like specifically in what?
Nothing in specific. I mean, there must be some learning that you take back from your experience in your field, right? That changes your outlook about the world. Anything in particular that strikes you?
Thinking worldview, and what else? What was the question? Science.
Your personal values.
My personal
Yeah.
values. Actually, if you want to start, you start. I'll just think about the question a little.
Well, see, science is very logical, right? And I think, I don't know whether it's the other way around. Because I'm a very logical person, that's why I'm doing science, or because I'm doing science, I'm a very logical person. But I think, you know, this is kind of, you know, it is, there is a cause and effect. So maybe, you know, that.
There's a certain kind of discipline in your other aspects of life that kind of set in when you're a researcher. That I feel in personal values, there is of course integrity and all of that that comes in. Hard work is always needed. I think as a scientist, that also comes in as your personal values. World views, I don't know if my views about, I think of world views and, you know, like, literally it comes politics in my mind. I think it's much broader than that. Being in science, of course, you know, you kind of have this critical mindset, so you kind of can't believe, like Atri said this, you're very logical. So just someone says something, maybe we are more into critical thinking and you want to critique it. There's always a for and anti for anything someone says in any aspect. I think that comes very naturally. I don't know if anything else you want to add, but to me that's something that just came to mind. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. I hope we all are able to inculcate such values in the future.
So one more question that was in my mind. So in Indian society, especially for women, there is like family pressure to marry and settle down after the age of 25 and all. It is considered to be like the biggest bottleneck for women
Are you
pursuing
married?
a career in science.
Oh.
So what is your take on this?
Both of us are not married. I just asked her.
Well, that's nice. I
So
mean, you get to
yeah, so we
Nice.
didn't have
I
that
think-
pressure. So we could do what we wanted to do. I guess we didn't have that pressure.
No, but okay, to be fair, maybe I'll address this. Again, I'll bring cultural facts into it as well. So of course, I have seen my friends go through it. So what you're saying is very legit. And some of my friends who've got married, gone into academia, gone into industry, I've seen that as well. So of course there is that pressure. So you always feel like you have to finish things very fast. Like when you're doing a PhD, others might be like, maybe if they don't have that pressure, it's always like, okay, I can still go and finish this in 6 more months. Whereas you have to always know that there's a time for this, there's a time for this, always there. Personally for me, I'd say, yeah, of course, you know, my family at some point was like, okay, are you interested? Are you going to do this? But again, we come from a very big, I think that's a Bengali thing again. You know, you say this once out, nope, when I decide something, I'll do it, don't bother me, and they kind of leave you alone. That's maybe a family thing, but I've seen my other friends go through it, so I do see that pressure. I also feel, this is again my personal viewpoint, so please don't, it's not like you have to think this way or anything. I feel that it's okay. It's okay to take a step back and not to rush in, because when you rush about any decision, be it a professional decision or a personal decision, thinking that something that you do will then make you settled or make you happy in a certain way. If you rush into it, it might not work out. So it's okay to believe in destiny for that reason and just say it's going to happen when it's going to happen, or if it doesn't happen, I'll still be happy because I've got this, 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 and this going on for me. That's how I think about it. But again, it's not universal opinion. So yeah, it's there. That problem, I do feel that's a legit problem though. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for answering that question. Manya.
Talking of more contemporary issues, we'd like to hear your thoughts on the current state of gender diversity in your field. And what do you think should be done in support of women in science, if you have any views on that?
Sure, I can start. Or yeah. One thing, a good thing is I feel that more people are talking about it. So 10 years earlier, maybe, you know, like there was 30% of the population that was aware of it, and now there's more awareness that there is less representation of women in not just science, in many other fields. We are scientists, so we are talking about the science, which is great. But it starts from awareness, and there are two things here that I feel that we might not be doing entirely right, but it's good to have the awareness, but it's also not good to kind of rush in to fix a gap that is there. Because, so right now, for example, let's say if you have 10 males and 1 female in a class, and you say, okay, I suddenly realize that there is this less representation of women, so from next year it has to be 5 and 5. I don't think that's a good solution, because you're trying to make up for something that has been incorrectly implemented, or for whatever reason, not just incorrectly implemented, something that has not been done correctly in 1 year or 2 years or in a sudden frame of time is not going to solve it. It's good to be aware, but it's also good to slowly try to bridge that gap than trying to bridge that gap very suddenly. When you try to bridge that gap suddenly, you're going to not look at what the talent that is required for hiring or for anything in your class. So, you know, you're going to lose out on respect, is what I feel. Sometimes people try to bridge that gap so suddenly that it's obvious that they're not, you know, things are just being given to them on a platter and they really don't deserve it. So even if women are getting more, a lot of women might not feel they really deserve it, right? And we don't want that. That's not equality, right? If I'm being called to say, I'll speak for myself. Suddenly, if there is a less women, suddenly people realize that less women are represented in seminars and conferences. There's 10 male faculties being called for conferences and 1 in a certain conference. And they suddenly think, no, the ratio is too bad and it should be 5 and 5. So they don't care what the field is. Calling me for a topic which I have no experience in is going to show up great on the numbers and Twitter and everything, but people sitting in that conference is going to know that's not my expertise. I'm going to make a fool of myself and not gain any respect. So I actually don't like that just for numbers, you know, kind of put people together. I think it's a problem. You're aware of it. You try to bridge it in phases and not directly. That's my take on it. But we'll actually, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with what Shangita just said. And yes, you're right. There is a lot of gap, you know, in terms of female representation in sciences. And the reasons are various. Societal, something that you just mentioned, right? There's a lot of pressure on women to start a family, and so even if they want to, they cannot stay in science. And what we can do about it, yes, you know, change, you know, this societal pressure that we sometimes put on women, you know, that has to be changed. And also I think one of the reasons you don't see a lot of women in science is because of lack of role models. You don't see, you know, growing up, I do not see, you know, somebody like me, for example, right? Yes, so as I said, I got into doing geosciences because I read this book by a female geologist, and I saw that this could be so interesting, and a woman could do this, right? So having role models is important, right? And what we, I think as scientists, as professors here, what we can do is probably, you know, go to schools and talk about what we do, or go to high schools, or go to undergrad colleges. I think that has a considerable impact on, you know, girls or young women who would like to do science.
Those were wonderful views, and we really hope they're going to be implemented pretty soon. Avni?
Yeah, Professor Athri partly answered my question, but what role do you think that scientists should play in public policy and education, and how do you personally engage with the broader community? To both of you.
How do I personally engage in broader community? Probably I don't as much as I should. But as I said, you know, one thing I love to do, and I have done it, is actually going and giving talks, you know, talking about my research to, you know, undergrad students or students in their plus 12. And I've seen, especially I've done it in girls' colleges, and I've seen them, I get really, really interested and inspired. So that's one thing I think we can do, you know, to engage with more young people and encourage them to do science. And I'm not just talking about women, I mean, to everybody, right? To both the genders, people in general.
I don't have much to add on. I think that's good. Yes.
So I think I would like to open the house now. So any one of you, if you have any questions, please raise your hands.
Hello, thank you for attending this session. I just want to ask something that I've noticed in history. Like, let's say the case study of, say, Jocelyn and Rosalind. They were, like, Jocelyn as in the person who discovered quasars. It has been seen, and I don't know if it happens or not, but I'm curious whether key discoveries by female scientists are usually usurped by other male colleagues and passed on as their own. Does that still happen in, like, do you know anything about that field? Like,
Yeah, so in history, absolutely, it's not just one, right? There's many instances of that. People publicly acknowledge that. There are two scenarios to that, and do I know of anything like that that still happens? I don't think clearly I know of anything, but here I always feel that women are more hesitant. At least that's what I've seen. In general, maybe I will say not majority, let's say, majority of women are a little bit hesitant to claim something as their own and to take ownership, not exactly brag, but to say, hey, I discovered this, this is my thing. It's something I feel I've seen in a lot of my friends. I've myself been that way when I was in graduate school. Whereas I feel that men in general are able to do that, and it's a good thing, are able to do that. We are more shy is probably not the right word, but feel coy about it and think anyone else might be able to do this, and be not too emphatic about it. In the last 50 years or before, maybe that was even more, the percentage of that, so it turned out like that. Were men intentionally doing that? I'm not the right person to comment. But I've seen this happen because of that. Like, you know, like someone, 2, 3 people working on a project, you can think about it as a very generic scenario. 3 of you working in a lab on the same project, discover something. 2 of you are males, 1 is a female. 2 of you go out in your friend circle group, you know, hanging out, and you're emphatic about what you've developed, and you know, you talk about it. And so what gets spread, hey, this person in this group, you know, has made this discovery. The female might not be talking about it as much, might not be proclaiming it as something that they own and they've made it, and so it gets lost in the line. So that is changing, though. I do feel, if you look at, you know, I don't know if you, maybe some of you have heard of the, just Carolyn Bertuzzi, if you know of her. She's very emphatic about all the discoveries that she has done, and she'll probably be one of the big names in chemical biology very soon. But I've listened to her talks when in grad school, and was she bragging about her research? No, but I think that's what, in general, women don't do necessarily, and that leads to what you're saying happen a lot. I don't know of anything. I don't know of anything that's happening right now, but maybe Atre, you can add if you have it.
No, I don't think I have anything to add. Yes, it's true. Historically, this has happened quite a bit. But I guess things are changing now. Yeah, that's all I can say.
Thank you for sharing your insights. It was really quite inspiring. And I just wanted to ask both of you spoke about your long-term inspiration and the what motivates you, the wonder and curiosity in the long run of learning more and finding out more about the world. But you also mentioned that science requires a lot of patience, and on a daily basis you will be involved in a lot of work that does not immediately give any groundbreaking results. So what are some of the small short-term joys that you must be experiencing in your work, some of the little beauties of what you do in the lab every day that you might want to share to motivate people?
I can, sure, yeah, great question. When I was a student, though, I didn't think of it like this, to be very honest. Like, when I was a grad student, I did not think of this. Now, I tell my students this. I said, okay, if you are going to go into the lab every day and you're able to solve the thing you're going to solve in that 1 day, 2 day, 5 days, it wasn't risky enough, or it wasn't, you know, challenging enough. And I feel that at least here in IIC, you know, the students that are coming in for research, or they're able to take challenges, they're able to solve risky challenges. So I kind of tell them that, you know, you can do better. So there's nothing to kind of get upset about if something doesn't work out in a month or 2, 3 months. But as a student, I can feel it. You're coming into lab every day, and, you know, that feeling of dejection. Well, my background has been chemistry and biochemistry and imaging, so I will just share my experience. Maybe it was always good to have a lot of things going on, a lot of projects going on. So perseverance and tenacity is one thing that kind of makes you succeed in this field. I feel as a scientist, it's kind of brain wired in you that you kind of don't give up. Like, if this fails, you give up for that 1 day where you feel like, okay, this is not going to work out. And then the next day, suddenly something fires in your brain and you're like, okay, I did not try this. Today I'm going to go and try this. And okay, it doesn't work again. And then, you know, something comes up again. I think that's like that's why you are into kind of research. If you knew going in that it would get solved, I'm sure you would not feel so interested about the research, right? You already know going in what's going to happen. right? You like that risk, that's your adrenaline thing, that I'm going to go and do something that no one else has kind of seen, or can I replicate this that someone else in this lab has kind of done it, right? So that's kind of gives you an high, but I feel like it's important, and that's why students in the field of science, they're more prone to, you know, depression and a lot of mental health issues, because they have this tendency of taking the lows too low and feeling that is the end of the world if they can't solve something. I feel that it is okay to have that consciousness that you will feel that and actively work to avoid it. On a day that nothing's going good, the best thing to do is take the day off. If you keep thinking that you're a failure and anyone else could have done it, and you know you're not being able to do it, and you keep pushing yourself down that hole, it's not good for you, and it's not easy for others in the lab or your PI or, you know, other peers to kind of get that frame, because they're not working on that same problem. My two solutions were always to have other things going on. If that was my main, like when my main project's not going on, I at least had 3 other things that I could work on. So something else in some other project will work. And then I go back to my initial problem when I feel good about myself. So that I've done as a student. The second thing is because I probably read a lot about, you know, mental health issues that graduate students in fields face, because we are so hardwired to be perfect. You will not see this in any other realms or any other fields that much as scientists. Scientists want to be perfect. Till they are perfect, they do a job that's kind of okay. They just feel it's not good enough and they're not good enough, right? So you just feel that need for perfection. So you should just know that you know, that's not the end of the world. It's just you who are trained to be so perfect that till you reach that, you feel you've attained nothing, which is not true. Celebrate the small things in your life. Learn to do that consciously, where you can celebrate a small thing that you've been able to achieve that day, and that's a way to keep yourself happy. Happiness is important, guys, and in this generation, yes. Yeah, that's my take on it, but yeah, please.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I just want to remind you, you know, we have talked about our journeys, you know, both of us, but I mean, I don't know about her, but at least for me, I don't think the road has been perfectly smooth. It wasn't. There were a lot of failures in between, and there were a lot of times I thought this is not for me. Okay, so keep in mind that the journey is not going to be one straight line. You're going to do something and you will get success. Hardly that happens. Most of the time there will be probably, 4 out of 5 times you will fail, and then 1 time you would get what you want. So, but you have to be aware of that. So if you think that, okay, I'm going to go in every day and this has to work, if it doesn't work, I'm a failure. No, that's not going to work, right? So, so be aware of that, you know, you only see the bright side of things. You only see us, you know, sitting here and talking of all the good things that have happened, but you know, be sure that a lot of bad things, a lot of failures have also happened. So it's a part of life, and you just have to, you know, hang in there.
Do we have any other questions?
I hope you heard me before.
No, can you repeat? Sorry, I think that last part I was not able to catch.
So I recently came upon a study where they did a public survey, and it reported that there's commonly a perception of importance attributed to typically male-dominated fields of sciences. So they propose there might be some sort of gender gating that's happening within different fields of science. So when we see more women are involved with biology, we see importance of biology getting reduced, or people perceive it as easier science than more important or more complex astrophysics or other fields of science like that. Do you think that exists, or is there any reason why it exists, if it exists?
I completely disagree with that statement. I want to now go and read this paper, to be honest. I think I give great value to biology. People around me give great value to biology. I've yet to find people that don't think, just because biologists have a lot of women, the impact, importance of biology is low. I have not personally felt that.
No, they're not saying the impact has been reduced. The impact is good, but the public perception of importance has been reduced.
Like you're saying, like astrophysics is doing that is more difficult or challenging than doing biology. Is that what the question is? Okay.
Or like people saying that biology is a woman's game. You throw like a girl, people used to say it as a slur or something. So that has become a grading. The grading of importance, or that science itself is reducing because it's populated more by women.
I'm very new to this, to be honest. The first time I'm hearing this. Yeah, I've not heard that at all actually ever. I don't know how to respond to that question. I'm going to think about it. If I have anything to add, I'll add. But I don't know, sometimes if there's something like that I get to hear of and I know very well in my head that's not true, I kind of give very less importance. I won't put my thought into it at all. But maybe because I am a chemist and a biologist, but maybe Atrey, you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, I also definitely don't agree with that. And I mean, I don't think just because, more women are doing biology, anybody would think that biology is not important. I mean, if you look at the funding, most of the funding is in biology, right? Because healthcare is important. So I don't think that's a correct perception. I mean, yeah, some people may have it, but yeah, it's completely erroneous. Thank you.
Are there any other questions people have?
It was really nice to have both of you here and hear your point of views, your experiences. It was very inspiring and it gave us a lot to learn. We would like to give you a small token.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all. This was really a great experience for me as well. Really enjoyed it. Thanks.
Same here. Thank you very much.